Most relationship advice talks endlessly about communication, compromise, and forgiveness, as if every emotional wound can be healed by patience and understanding. While it is true that love requires grace, maturity, and the ability to forgive human mistakes, there is a dangerous lie hidden inside that idea. Not everything should be forgiven. Some behaviors do not merely hurt feelings in a temporary moment. They cross invisible lines that permanently damage self-respect, attraction, and the emotional structure of the relationship itself. The men who suffer most are not the angry ones or the controlling ones, but the ones who forgive too easily in the name of peace. There are mistakes born from emotion, bad days, miscommunication, stress, exhaustion, or momentary insensitivity can be repaired when both people remain respectful at the core. But there are other actions that are not emotional accidents. They are signals that show how much you are valued, how safe your dignity is, and whether your boundaries are real or theoretical. When these actions are ignored or laughed off, the relationship does not stay the same. It quietly shifts. Power dynamics change. Respect erodes. Attraction fades. Not because love disappeared, but because it was never protected. Many men believe that staying silent keeps harmony. They think that letting things slide makes them strong, patient, or emotionally evolved. In reality, silence in the face of disrespect does not preserve peace. It trains the other person on what is acceptable. Every time a line is crossed without consequence, it becomes easier to cross again. What starts as something small slowly becomes normalized, until the man no longer recognizes himself inside the relationship. He becomes careful, restrained, and internally resentful, while outwardly calm. Forgiving unforgivable behavior is not kindness. It is denial. It is telling yourself a story that love will eventually fix what boundaries failed to protect. But love without boundaries does not heal. It enables. And once respect is replaced by tolerance, attraction follows it out the door. This is why many relationships don't end with explosions, betrayal, or dramatic fights. They end quietly, through emotional decay that no one wants to name. The purpose of understanding these lines is not to create fear or paranoia. It is to develop clarity. Clear standards protect peace. They prevent emotional damage before it becomes permanent. The actions you are about to learn are not red flags to argue over endlessly. They are signals to recognize, respond to decisively, and if necessary, walk away from without guilt or anger. Because self-respect is not negotiable, and once it is lost, no apology can truly restore what was surrendered. In the next part, we'll begin with the first behavior that often looks harmless on the surface, yet quietly destroys attraction the moment it is tolerated. When a woman disrespects you in public, it rarely looks dramatic at first. It often comes disguised as humor, sarcasm, eye-rolling, interrupting you mid-sentence, mocking your opinion, or subtly embarrassing you in front of others. Many men brush this off as harmless banter or assume she is just being emotional or playful. But public disrespect is not about mood. It is about positioning. The moment she feels comfortable lowering you in front of other people, something fundamental has already shifted beneath the surface. Public settings amplify meaning. When disrespect happens privately, it may be emotional leakage or poor communication. When it happens in front of others, it sends a message not just to you, but to everyone watching. It quietly signals dominance. It tells the room that your authority, confidence, or presence does not need to be taken seriously. And more importantly, It teaches her something dangerous, that she can wound your pride and still keep your love. Once that lesson is learned, the dynamic flips. Many men respond incorrectly by laughing it off, staying silent, or pretending not to notice. They believe reacting will make them look insecure or weak. In reality, the opposite is true. Silence in that moment does not demonstrate confidence. It demonstrates tolerance. And tolerance of disrespect is interpreted as permission from that point forward. The tone changes, her patience shortens, her interest fades, her attraction erodes. Not because you did anything wrong, but because respect is the oxygen of attraction. Without it, everything suffocates slowly. This is how attraction dies quietly, not through screaming matches or betrayal, but through small, repeated moments where a man allows himself to be diminished without consequence. Over time, she stops seeing you as someone she needs to impress, admire, or protect. You become predictable, emotionally safe in the wrong way, and unintentionally easy to dismiss. The irony is that many men stay calm to preserve connection, but that calmness, when unbound by standards, destroys the very connection they are trying to protect. The solution is not confrontation fueled by anger. Yelling, threats, or dramatic ultimatums only reveal loss of control. The correct response is withdrawal of energy paired with clear, non-negotiable boundaries. You do not need to explain yourself endlessly. You do not need to prove why respect matters. You simply remove access to your attention, warmth, and presence when it is violated. And you must be genuinely willing to walk away if the behavior continues. Because once a woman realizes that public disrespect costs her nothing, she will keep spending it freely. But when she understands that crossing that line means losing you, respect either returns, or the relationship reveals that it was already over. In the next part, we'll examine an even deeper betrayal, one that doesn't attack your pride publicly, but targets something far more fragile and sacred. There is a sacred contract that forms the moment a man chooses to be emotionally open with a woman. When you share your fears, your past wounds, your insecurities, or the softer parts of your inner world, you are not becoming weak. You are extending trust. You are saying, consciously or not, that this person is safe. When that vulnerability is later used against you, it is not a misunderstanding. It is a betrayal that cuts far deeper than most men realize at first. This behavior often reveals itself during conflict. Something you shared in a quiet, intimate moment is suddenly brought up in an argument. A past failure becomes a weapon. A childhood wound becomes a punchline. Your honesty is reframed as evidence against you. At first, it feels shocking rather than intentional. You tell yourself she didn't mean it that way, that she was emotional, that it just slipped out. But when vulnerability is weaponized, it is rarely accidental. It is calculated leverage. The psychological damage here is profound. The place where you were supposed to feel understood becomes unsafe. The person you trusted to protect your softness turns it into emotional blackmail. Over time, you begin to censor yourself. You stop sharing. You become guarded. You carry the weight alone. And the most destructive part is that you often blame yourself for being too open, rather than recognizing the breach of trust that occurred. What was meant to create intimacy instead creates distance and internal shame. A woman who truly loves and respects a man understands something essential. Vulnerability is not the opposite of masculinity. It is part of it. It is the courage to reveal without fear of humiliation. A loving woman protects that space instinctively, even when angry. A manipulative woman does the opposite. She files away your weaknesses, waiting for the moment they will give her control. Once she crosses that line, forgiveness does not heal the wound. It resets the trap. Many men believe that forgiving this behavior shows emotional maturity. In reality, it teaches her that your inner world is a tool she can use without consequences. And once that lesson is learned, it doesn't unlearn itself. Each time you open up again, you do so with a quiet fear in the background, wondering when it will be turned against you. That is not intimacy. That is emotional exposure without safety. This is why this behavior is unforgivable, not out of anger, but out of self-protection. Trust, once broken at this level, cannot be restored through apologies alone, and staying only reinforces the dynamic that your vulnerability is expendable. In the next part, we'll explore another silent destroyer of relationships, one that doesn't attack emotions directly, but slowly erodes reality itself. Lying repeatedly does not usually announce itself in obvious, dramatic ways. It begins quietly, almost invisibly. A detail is omitted, a story slightly changes, I forgot to tell you. Becomes a habit. It's not what it looks like. Becomes a pattern. At first, you sense something is off, but you dismiss it because there is no single moment dramatic enough to justify confrontation. That is how repeated lying survives. It hides inside plausibility. Over time, the issue is no longer the lie itself, but the atmosphere it creates. Words stop matching actions. Promises feel hollow. You find yourself replaying conversations, checking timelines, and wondering whether your instincts are wrong. And when you finally ask questions, the response is calm, dismissive, and subtly accusatory. You are told you are overthinking, that you are insecure, that you are imagining things. Slowly, the narrative flips, and the man who seeks clarity becomes the problem. This is where the real damage occurs. Repeated lying trains you to doubt your own perception, instead of trusting your intuition. You begin defending her explanations over your own peace. You start chasing truth instead of living it. You expend emotional energy trying to reconcile inconsistencies while she controls the narrative effortlessly. What looks like patience on the outside is often quiet self-abandonment on the inside. The most dangerous part is that repeated lying requires confidence. No one lies consistently unless they believe forgiveness is guaranteed. Each lie that is excused reinforces the belief that respect is optional. At this stage, truth is no longer valued. Performance replaces honesty. Love becomes theater. And a relationship without truth is not a relationship at all. It is emotional anesthesia, numbing you just enough to stay while damage continues underneath. Many men stay because there is no single catastrophic lie they can point to. But patterns matter more than events. One lie may be a mistake. Repeated lies are a choice. They signal that maintaining control matters more than maintaining integrity. And when integrity disappears, attraction follows. A woman cannot deeply respect a man who tolerates deception. And without respect, love becomes conditional and unstable. Forgiving repeated lying does not restore trust. It erases boundaries. It tells her that reality itself is negotiable as long as emotions are managed carefully. This is why men often feel drained rather than angry in these relationships. They are not fighting her. They are fighting confusion. The solution is not interrogation or emotional pleading. It is clarity. When words and actions no longer align consistently, you stop arguing with evidence and start honoring it. Peace requires truth. And when truth is replaced with lies, walking away becomes an act of self-respect, not punishment. In the next part, we'll look at what happens when trust is broken not once, but repeatedly, and why patience in that situation is often misunderstood as strength. Trust is not destroyed in one dramatic explosion. It is eroded through small, deliberate choices made repeatedly while loyalty is still expected in return. Flirting that is dismissed as harmless, messages that are hidden and later minimized, emotional attention given elsewhere while commitment is demanded at home. Each individual act may seem explainable in isolation, but together they form a pattern that reveals something much deeper than momentary temptation. When trust is broken repeatedly, the core issue is no longer the behavior itself, but the expectation that forgiveness will always arrive on time. This is where many men confuse patience with strength. They believe that staying calm, understanding, and loyal proves their value. In reality, repeated betrayal often continues precisely because consequences never arrive. Patience without boundaries does not communicate love. It communicates fear of loss. A woman who truly respects a man fears losing his trust more than losing the relationship itself. Trust represents safety, direction, and emotional grounding. When a woman knowingly risks it again and again, she is not confused, she is confident. Confident that tears, apologies, or emotional displays will reset the balance without changing the pattern. And once that confidence is established, betrayal becomes easier, not harder. Many men stay because apologies feel sincere. Tears appear real. Promises sound convincing. But patterns do not respond to words. They respond to consequences. Staying after repeated betrayal does not heal the bond. It teaches her that loyalty is one-sided and optional. Over time, resentment replaces affection, and self-respect quietly drains away. The most painful truth is that repeated betrayal often means the woman is emotionally gone already, even if she remains physically present. The relationship becomes familiar, comfortable, and secure, but no longer sacred. And a man who continues to invest in a bond that is no longer protected pays the price internally. He becomes vigilant, suspicious, and emotionally exhausted, mistaking endurance for devotion. Walking away in this situation is not an act of anger or punishment. It is an act of dignity. It is the moment a man chooses himself over a cycle that will not correct itself. Apologies cannot repair a repeated breach of trust because trust is built on consistency, not remorse. And once consistency is gone, staying only prolongs the erosion. In the next part, we'll explore a quieter but equally destructive behavior, one that attacks not the relationship directly, but the future of the man within it. A man's sense of purpose is not just a career choice or a set of goals. It is the internal compass that gives his life direction, meaning, and structure. When a woman disrespects that purpose, she is not simply expressing an opinion. She is challenging the very foundation of who he is becoming. This behavior rarely appears as open hostility. More often, it hides inside subtle comments, passive irritation, or quiet mockery that slowly chips away at ambition. It may sound like concern at first. You work too much. Why do you care so much about that? Can't you just relax on the surface? These statements appear reasonable, even loving, but beneath them lies resistance, a discomfort with growth, a fear that as you evolve, you may outgrow the version of yourself she feels secure controlling. When a man's drive is treated as an inconvenience instead of a strength, attraction begins to decay in both directions. A supportive woman understands that a man's purpose grounds his masculinity. It gives him confidence, patience, and emotional stability. She does not compete with it. She aligns with it. She feels safer knowing he is moving towards something larger than momentary comfort. A woman who disrespects your purpose does the opposite. She makes your ambition feel like a burden. She frames your discipline as obsession and your vision as selfishness. Over time, this creates internal conflict. You begin to feel guilty for wanting more. Many men respond by shrinking themselves. They work less, dream smaller, soften their edges to preserve harmony. But what they don't realize is that the very qualities they suppress are often what created attraction in the first place. Direction, drive, self-respect. When you abandon your purpose to keep the peace, you lose more than goals. You lose your identity. And without identity, attraction cannot survive. This behavior is unforgivable, not because compromise is wrong, but because consistent disrespect toward your future poisons the relationship from the inside. A woman who loves you does not ask you to stay small so she can feel comfortable. She does not laugh at your vision or resent the time you invest in becoming better. She understands that your growth benefits the relationship, not threatens it. When your dreams are treated as obstacles instead of pillars, resentment replaces inspiration. You begin to associate success with conflict rather than fulfillment. And no relationship built on that dynamic can remain healthy or equal. In the next part, we'll examine a betrayal that doesn't happen to your face at all, but one that can destroy you socially, emotionally, and reputationally without you realizing it until it's too late. Some betrayals happen quietly, out of sight, where you cannot defend yourself or even realize the damage until it has already spread. When a woman destroys your reputation behind your back, she is not venting. She is rewriting reality. This behavior often disguises itself as seeking support from friends, but the intention reveals itself through exaggeration, selective storytelling, and subtle character assassination. You are no longer a partner with flaws. You become the villain in her narrative. This is one of the most dangerous lines to cross because it attacks something far larger than the relationship itself. Your name, your character, your social standing. While she may smile to your face and act affectionate in private, she's planting seeds of doubt in the minds of others. Stories are twisted, context is removed, your intentions are reframed as cruelty, neglect, or emotional absence. And once those impressions take root, they are almost impossible to fully undo. What makes this behavior unforgivable is not just the betrayal, but the calculation behind it. A woman who respects you protects your image, even when she is angry. She may feel hurt, frustrated, or disappointed, but she does not seek validation by tearing you down socially. Loyalty is not proven during good moments. It is proven during conflict, when she chooses to preserve her ego by sacrificing your reputation. She reveals where her priorities truly lie. Many men try to fix this by explaining themselves, confronting mutual friends, or hoping that time will clarify the truth. This rarely works. Once a story has been told enough times, it becomes accepted as fact, regardless of accuracy. And the damage goes beyond embarrassment. It poisons future interactions. It changes how people look at you. It isolates you emotionally, often without you understanding why. The deeper wound is psychological. Being betrayed publicly without your knowledge creates a sense of helplessness. You begin to question who knows what, who believes what, and whether you are being judged silently. This erodes trust not only in her, but in the social world around you. And unlike a breakup, which heals with time, reputational damage lingers. A woman who truly loves a man guards his name instinctively. She understands that his reputation is tied to his dignity, his confidence, and his future. An ego-driven woman does not care about that. She cares about winning the emotional narrative, even if it costs you everything socially. There is no recovery from this through patience or explanation. Distance is the only solution. Permanent distance. Not to punish, but to protect what remains of your self-respect and peace. Because once someone is willing to destroy you behind your back, they are no longer safe to stand beside. In the next part, we'll examine a more subtle form of control, one that doesn't attack your image, but slowly dismantles your values from the inside.